Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Cesar Rojas. I am a Product Marketing Manager for the Nutanix Database Service, and I'll be your host today. We're thrilled to have you here as part of our Nutanix Database Service Tech Talk series. Today, we will deep dive into the innovations provided by the Nutanix Database Service 2.7 release. Our speaker is Jeremy Lonier, Principal PM in Nutanix Database Service Product Team. Before we start our presentation with Jeremy, we would like to understand your current level of adoption of NDB. For that, we would like for you to answer the questions on this poll that we're going to be showing in the screen right now. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to answer these questions, and then we can continue. The two questions that we have on the poll is, what is your interest in the Nutanix Database Service? And if you're using it today, if you're evaluating or you're still not using it. And the second question is, what version of NDB are you using? 2.7, which is the latest release that we're going to be covering today, to 6, to 5, or older, or if you're not using at all the Nutanix Database Service. Wait a tiny bit more for more answers as I see more people joining. If you're joining right now, please answer the poll that you have in the screen right now. We have 2 questions on the poll. Getting that I have 76% participation. If you are just joining, please feel free to answer this poll. This will help us customize a presentation or target your presentation a little better for your needs. I think we're going to close the poll now. Actually still see some answers. Okay, the first one is, what is your interest in the Nutanix Database Service? And the second one is, what version of NDB are you today? I'm going to be sharing the results. So we have a lot of, we have a significant number of customers using Nutanix, and also a large number of people that want to learn more. And we have a good number of 2.6 users. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay, without further ado, let's welcome Jeremy as he takes us onto the session today. If you're going to be asking questions, please feel free to use the Q&A link on the Zoom Workplace screen. So use that instead of the chat. Okay, Jeremy, I think I'm over to you now, and hopefully if you have any questions, we'll be answering the questions as we go on the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Cesar, and thank you everyone for joining today's webcast. Very excited to talk to you about NDB 2.0. Let me just start off with just a quick overview of the product for the 45% of you in the poll that said that you hadn't used the product, but you want to learn a little bit more about it. And then we'll jump into the specifics of what's new in 2.7 and why that should be important to you. So to start off with, NDB is a hybrid multi-cloud database platform service. It's not database as a service. It's not a SaaS offering managed by Nutanix. Rather, it's software that you can run and deploy that allows you to run and operate a database service offering to your lines of business, into your business units. And so NDB runs as a control plane, as a set of virtual machines on top of Nutanix infrastructure. And it provides a standard REST-based API, graphical user interface, as well as CLI interface for defining database standards, for provisioning databases, both single instance and highly available databases. And I'll show you a demo of that a little bit later on today with one of our database engines, as well as a number of secondary lifecycle operations around databases, including database clone management, patch management, as well as snapshot-based point-in-time backup recovery. We do support the most popular database engines that are available in the market today. That includes Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle Database, EDB, Postgres, Advanced Server, MongoDB, both Community Edition and Enterprise Edition, MySQL, Postgres Community, and of course MariaDB as well. And as I mentioned earlier, it is hybrid multi-cloud because it runs on top of Nutanix cloud platform. And so that means that the identical experience for how you provision and manage the lifecycle of your databases exists, whether you're running your databases on your own infrastructure in your own data centers, or if you're running that on bare metal in the public cloud. I would say just really quickly, just a couple key highlights if you're not familiar with our offering. We really try to differentiate by providing very solid support for both open source databases, the most popular open source databases, as well as proprietary databases like Oracle Database and SQL Server, so that we find that many of our customers are making a journey from more license-based proprietary databases to open source, and then they're looking for a platform that can provide simplicity and ease of use and self-service for both. It's also, like I said, available on Nutanix as an infrastructure substrate. So it works the same way across public cloud, on-premises, as well as in a partner location if you have a service provider that's running Nutanix. And then Nutanix really provides an end-to-end support experience, meaning that while you can always call into Nutanix if you have problems with the product, with your database, with the automation. If we determine that there's something deep into the database engine, say, for example, we determine through some sort of troubleshooting process that there may be an Oracle bug, we would leverage TSA-net and we would contact Oracle on your behalf as part of the support escalation, and we would work directly with the support so that you would never have to worry about us pointing fingers with another vendor. We always work together. And then finally, because these are database servers that run in your environment, this means you retain full control. So you still retain full root admin level access to the operating systems of your databases, even though we're running automation on top, which gives you flexibility to install your own security agents like Splunk or other software in addition to the database software that we manage. Okay, so let's just kind of jump into 2.7 highlights. I'm going to just briefly highlight some of the key enhancements, but there's a number of enhancements that went into 2.7. And I would also just highlight that generally speaking, we release 3 releases of NDB a year that include feature enhancements and new feature capabilities. We also have maintenance releases and patch releases that are more focused on bug fixes and security enhancements that come out more frequently. But at least 3 times a year, we're releasing updates with new feature functionality. And so in 2.7, which was just released, there's really 6 key areas that I wanted to hone in on. The first and probably the most interesting one is we've added the first phase of support for MongoDB Sharding in their product, which is the ability to provision highly available MongoDB sharded clusters on top of Nutanix infrastructure with best practices. And this is one where I'm going to actually show a demo and go into more detail. But today you can provision and deprovision, and then as part of our roadmap in the future, we're working on extending that to support a range of second-day lifecycle operations around the database. The other key enhancement I would highlight is that we've added support for AI workloads, and specifically because NDB is a control plane, what we've really focused on is testing and validating and doing interoperability testing with both community Postgres and with EDB EPAS in collaboration with EDB to validate pgvector and to ensure that if you are running Postgres databases and you want those to be used as part of a RAG model, as part of your inferencing for your large language models and AI, that you can install and configure pgvector, and you can run the necessary data import and transformation efforts without having to relocate your data to a different vector-based database. So you can keep your data in your existing Postgres database, and you can start to use that as part of your inferencing, at the edge or within your data center. So that's an important enabler, and it's also very much in line with Nutanix larger AI on Nutanix effort, which I think many of you are aware of. We have a validated design around AI, and then which I think in the first release we called GPT in a box, if you're not familiar with it. But that's in line with our efforts to really make it easy to run AI workloads on top of Nutanix infrastructure. Next key thing I would highlight is while we've long supported encryption at the AOS storage level with Nutanix, meaning you can run databases managed by NDB on Nutanix Cloud Platform, and Nutanix Cloud Platform will encrypt the underlying storage. We recently added support in NDB and interoperability in NDB to support native database level encryption. So we still have a little bit more work to do there. This will come over phases, over multiple releases. But in this first release, to really help prioritize some time-sensitive requests from some of our customers, we added support for native transparent data encryption from MongoDB Enterprise. And then we also added support for Talos Group CipherTrust CTE to be able to encrypt both EDB advanced Postgres server database instances as well as Postgres community. And I'll show that briefly when I go into a demo, but that's also where you can define in NDB your key management servers and ahead of time. So basically NDB is aware of that infrastructure and can support it to support database level encryption. Related to security, as a part of every release, we always patch and apply the latest CVE, so that's kind of a given. But in addition to that, the other thing that we enhanced in 2.7 is we changed the behavior of how we provision MongoDB and Postgres, so that you can have a lot more flexibility to use custom accounts, custom operating system accounts to run the database instance. So in the prior versions of NDB, you kind of had to use the standard out-of-box accounts provided by MongoDB and Postgres, and now you can choose those, right? So that gives you a lot more flexibility if you want to use a non-standard name to reduce the surface area of attack from a security perspective. As part of every release, in fact, even in between releases, we test and validate new versions of database software and new versions of operating system software. Generally speaking, that process runs orthogonal from our release process. What that means is that independent of our 3 releases a year, if we have an ongoing regular monthly sprints where we test and validate new versions of database software and operating system software, and we test for interoperability with all of our automation suite. And that process, unless we determine that there's some code change needed by Nutanix, we will simply just test and validate and update our compatibility matrix on our support portal so that you can take advantage of the latest versions of Postgres or Red Hat or other combinations. In rare cases where we have determined that there are code changes needed, there's been a few of in the past just because of surprises that come from the operating system vendors and whatnot. Those changes go in as part of one of our typical release vehicles, the three a year. So we have made some enhancements here. We did test and validate new versions of software. Nothing that required code changes. It just so happened that the timing was very, very similar to the release. So I'll just kind of highlight some of those when we get to it.
Hey, Jeremy, we have a question from Gothan on encryption. He's specifically asking if TDE is available with MySQL.
Yeah, so TDE, we have not explicitly tested TDE with MySQL. However, we have tested TDE with MariaDB in the past as part of a joint effort with MariaDB Enterprise. And in that example, because the enabling of the encryption is entirely at the table level, there was nothing that had to be done on the NDB side. So we haven't explicitly tested it with MySQL, but if you're talking about MySQL Enterprise where TDE is available, it may just work. We just haven't had a cycle to test it, but we could certainly have a conversation with you offline if you want to maybe explore that and work with us to add that to our roadmap. Last thing I will highlight, and I'll talk more about that, is we've enhanced our multi-cloud capability. So as I said in the beginning, when I was kind of providing an overview of the use cases that we support with NDB, I indicated that we can run on top of public cloud. And the way we do that is we use Nutanix AOS or NCI as a infrastructure as a service substrate. And so that software runs on bare metal. It can run on bare metal on both AWS as well as Azure. NDB has long since supported this on AWS. We recently added support for running the full NDB automation capabilities on top of Azure. And so that's available in the marketplace. So if you have cloud commitments, you can use those to burn down and purchase NDB licensing through the marketplace. It's also the full set of capabilities. So all the database engines, all the HA models that are supported, you can build a provision, patch backup recover your databases in either public cloud the exact same way that you would do it on premises. Okay, before I get into any more details, Cesar, are there any other questions before I jump into the details?
Not yet.
Okay, great. So let me talk about sharding, and this is one I'm going to show a demo, so I'll just kind of keep the slide very briefly. So NDB has long supported the ability to provision single node instances of Mongo that are typically maybe appropriate for a dev environment. We also had added quite a while ago in the past support for defining and building replica sets, either 3-node or 5-node replica sets. And then just recently, we added the provisioning and deprovisioning capability for sharded clusters. So in this scenario, we've tested and validated up to 10 shards as of this release, and we'll look to extend that to be for larger shards in the future. And so that's 10 shards with up to five replicas. So that's a total of 50 VMs that may be spun up as part of a MongoDB sharded cluster. It's a pretty significant size for situations where you may need a high level of write scaling to run a very, very large database. I talked briefly about the encryption. This is just a quick screenshot, but I'll just briefly highlight it when I go into the product. The basic idea is that we've done interoperability testing, but we've also built support directly in the product itself, where you can register your KMS with NDB. And as a part of the provisioning flow, you can choose whether to enable encryption or not. And some of the capabilities depend on whether you have enterprise versions of database software. So for example, for something like a MongoDB, that's TDE, which is a feature exclusive to the enterprise version of MongoDB. So that's not available to community. We also, with Talus CTE, that's more of a file system-based encryption, so that's available, independent of the version of the database software. And like I had indicated earlier, what we've tested and validated as part of this release is really those two combinations around Postgres and MongoDB, based on high priority, time-sensitive requests from customers. But over time, our goal is to extend that and provide robust support for both encryption solutions across all of our supported database engines. I mentioned this earlier, but when provisioning databases, you now have the flexibility to choose the database user that you want to run, the operating system user you want to run your database as. So if you want to use a custom name, you can do that. It just gives you more flexibility around security, because as you can imagine, if you can, it's one thing to choose a custom key or password for the account that your database software runs as, but if you can further obscure that by also changing the account name and the process name, that helps a lot as well. So we're just giving you more flexibility to be even more secure in your environment. This is just a highlight of some of the key versions, but I would indicate that probably the best way to determine what we support is to go to our support portal and go to our release notes, which include a compatibility matrix and a section for each database engine, which for each database engine indicates which operating systems we support and the editions of database software that we support. So the key thing here is that we just extended support for the latest minors around Postgres 16. Postgres 17 is still in the works. That's we've not finished our testing for that yet, but that's something it's in progress. And likewise, the same thing for MongoDB. We've tested all the way up through the latest minor of MongoDB 7, and then we're in the process of going through similar testing for MongoDB 8, which is in the works. And then we also added some additional support around variants of operating systems for MariaDB and for MySQL. It's probably just worth highlighting that on the infra side, we also, as part of this last release, we also added support for vSphere 8. So if you are running ESX, and we do have some customers that are still running NDB with ESX, although a majority are running with AHV today. If you are running ESX, you can run the latest version of ESX with NDB, and it's fully tested and validated. We also deprecated support for some older versions that are no longer supported by those infrastructure vendors and database engine vendors. So do be aware of that. We dropped support, particularly on the Windows side with SQL Server, because I know that we have a lot of SQL Server customers. We dropped support for SQL Server 2008 R2 and 2012, as well as Windows 2012 and 2012 R2, because those are no longer supported by Microsoft. So generally speaking, that's our process. We drop support for software as is no longer supported by the database engine vendor. And then we keep support for as long as those are available.
Jeremy, we have another question.
Yeah.
Is PC 2024.3 supported as well?
So we're in process of testing that. We've not completed the testing on that one yet. So I would hold off on upgrading to that. And if you do have a specific need to get to that, please reach out to your account team and we can have a conversation with you and our product team about the time sensitivity of your project to upgrade, and then we can give you more visibility into the time frame for when we can support it. But just as I mentioned before, I would definitely refer to our compatibility matrix and our support portal because that's updated regularly. And in many cases, there's no code changes needed. So we, independent of the release, independent of waiting for the next release of NDB, once we've tested and validated there's some new combination, we may just update the compatibility matrix. So I would suggest always referencing that as a source of truth. Cesar, any other questions before I talk a little bit about public cloud?
Not at this point, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so then let's talk about public cloud. So with this latest version, we extended support for our public cloud capabilities to go beyond AWS to also include Azure, and that just means that you can spin up NDB in the public cloud on bare metal instances using NC2 from Nutanix. And you can use your existing NDB licensing because it's portable, or you can buy the licensing directly through the marketplace if you need to. As I mentioned before, all of our database engines are supported, including highly available environments. We also, even though it may be questionable from an Oracle support stance, we also support Oracle RAC as well. And so maybe that's not appropriate for production because of depending on your Oracle support contract. But that may be very appropriate for your dev environments or for testing purposes. So just be aware that we support all the database combinations in the cloud that we do on premises with no restrictions. I think one of the key value props here is that really this starts to really open up some opportunity around multi-cloud. If you have situations where you may be running a production database on premises, but then you may want to create clones of your database for development and testing in the cloud, you can do that very easily with NDB, or maybe vice versa. There may also be situations where you want to spin up a highly available database with DR like SQL Server Always On, where you may want a reliable database to be on premises, and maybe you want re-replicas in the cloud as a potential DR failover target. So it just opens up a lot of opportunities. And there is a blog that is available. And I think later on when we get to the end of the presentation, Cesar will be posting some links to some follow-up content, and we'll Cesar, if you can just make sure to include the link to the NDB blog for Azure as well for folks that want to learn more about that. Okay, then let me just jump into a demo. So for this demo, I'm going to show you NDB provisioning of MongoDB. Great. This is the main screen for NDB. For those of you that are familiar with NDB and that are using it, one thing that we did change in 2.7 is we changed some of the navigation UI. So you notice here this more of a Prism Central style navigation UI that's compliant with our UX experience across our other Nutanix products. So that you can see this this hamburger menu at the top, and then you can basically navigate to from this main dashboard to different areas such as your databases, maybe time machines, which we talked about in the last tech talk, or if you want to go and define your database standards, you can go to profiles. You can create your new images for your database engines that you want to make available to your database to your end users. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a flow for how you would spin up a sharded clustered environment. So we're going to go ahead and go to provision, and I'll choose MongoDB, and I'll choose sharded cluster. And as part of that flow, we will start off by defining a cluster name and the infrastructure that we want to run the cluster on top of. So we'll just create a Mongo test. I'm going to choose to run this sharded cluster across 2 Nutanix clusters, but it can be more if you need to. And today we validated up to 3 clusters, and then we're looking to extend that beyond 3 clusters in the future. I mean, 3 Nutanix infrastructure, cloud infrastructure clusters. I'll choose a network to be used, a version of the database software to be used, and then I'll supply a key for us to use for secure access to the operating system if we need to. As a part of this flow, we'll just give a name for the database instance. We'll just call this test. And the This will be for our sales database. We'll just use this username, but I'll just change the password here. And then you can define your shards. So you can define, like I said, you can define up to 10 shards. And for each shard, you can define the names. It'll be spun up on a number of VMs. You can decide where the shards go in terms of the physical infrastructure. So for example, we may put the first two, the primary and a replica set, we may put the primary and a secondary on the same Nutanix cluster, and then put the third replica on a different cluster. And we'll do that for each of the shards, just so we're consistent, like such. And then you can, obviously you can go in and you can change that to be a larger replica set. If you want to add more replicas, you can add more replicas. If you want to do like a 5-node replica set. And likewise, you can also change the count of the shards if you want to as well. So as a part of this flow, we will create the 2 sharded replica sets. The 2 shards with the replica sets. We'll also create the config server, the Mongo S servers as well, and choose where those get placed on different Nutanix infrastructure. If you want to, you can call out to custom scripts as a part of that provisioning flow to basically run some custom software to do additional setup around MongoDB. So you're welcome to do that. And then if it's the enterprise version, you can also choose to encrypt. In my demo environment, this is the community edition of Mongo, so I can't show you the encryption. But if you have the enterprise edition, you can also choose to enable encryption of your database at the same time. Before we build out the environment, the couple of key things I would highlight. One is that we provide a review of all the entire configuration that's going to be stood up. So this is a little bit of a change from what those of you in NDB may have seen in the past. So we're introducing this kind of visibility for our database engines is to make it a lot clearer what is being created as part of the provisioning flow. And for those of you that are not familiar, we also provided an easy way to call an API. So while you're going through the flow in the GUI, you may say, you know what, this is great, but I don't really want to use a GUI. I actually want to call this from my CI/CD pipeline or maybe from ServiceNow. And so we see a lot of customers that do that. In fact, I would say that the majority of our customers don't use the GUI at all. They just use our APIs for NDB. But that aside, yeah, you can call API equivalent and you can pick your language of choice, and then you can download a script to basically call that API and create that sharded cluster programmatically. In this case, I'll just go ahead and click provision, and that'll kick off a provisioning operation. Now, the provisioning operation may take a little bit of time because it's creating a lot of infrastructure. It's creating in this case, lots of virtual machines on two different Nutanix clusters as part of 2 shards, and there's a replica set per shard. So there's quite a bit that's being stood up. So we're building all that infrastructure. We're adding all the appropriate storage with best practices based on our MVDs. And then we are basically connecting it all together and then putting it under NDB management. Once it's under NDB management, then you can interact with it, you can connect to it, and then of course you can remove it if you need to. I'll just briefly, because this is going to probably take too long for the demo, I'll just briefly flip over and show you an example of another database from Mongo that's already been created. But before I do that, are there any questions, Cesar? Any questions from anybody about our MongoDB support?
Not at this point.
Okay, so this is the new instance that's being created. So this will take a little while, but I'll click onto this other one. So this is a smaller sharded environment. This is an example of a single shard that's been stood up. But this will give you an idea of the type of visibility you get into the database cluster once you've created it through NDB. So you can obviously connect to the cluster. You can see the version of the software that's running, the size. You can see the components and then click into each of those components if you want to. You can see all the databases that are created in that environment, any alerts for that database instance, and then there's a visual topology to help you understand how this whole thing is stood up and managed on top of Nutanix infrastructure. And then likewise, you can see that this was built from standard configurations. So one of the key benefits of NDB is that the database engineering platform teams, they can define the versions of database software and the t-shirt sizes and the additions, and then they can publish that into a NDB service catalog. And then once those are published, you can then make those available as part of a provisioning workflow. So these are all based on standards that have been built out ahead of time, and we make it easy. Teacher sizes, all that stuff makes it really easy to ensure that as you're trying to provide database services to your lines of business and your business units, that you're able to reduce the amount of variations in your fleet and provide a consistent experience for your database engines, which many of our customers are taking advantage of. Okay, so I think that's it for the demo. I think maybe one other thing I'll just briefly show you is I'll just highlight really quickly the integration we did with encryption. So under settings now, you can basically navigate to settings, and there's a section under settings for encryption. And under there, you can choose your external KMS, and you can register those directly with NDB. And you can also add in CipherTrust encryption if you need to. So if you want to integrate with CipherTrust both for KMS as well for encryption, you can definitely do so. And then if you're using TDE, we've tested and validated that with CipherTrust as a KMS system. So that's the demo for today. And then I think I'll just open up for any Q&A. So let me kind of go back to the presentation. Okay, all right. So then I think Cesar, before we go into Q&A, you wanted to just spend a minute and talk about where people should go to learn more about NDB, right?
Sure. So if you want to actually added a number of items also on the chat, so you have a direct link. In addition to what we have on the screen, I added into the chat also the location of the 2.7 blog post if you want more information about 2.7. We have a test drive environment that you can go and just test NDB. If you're a customer or a partner, you have access to the 2.7 release notes. We actually have a number of customers that have implemented NDB that are fully documented. You can go to that link as well. And finally, if you need to contact us, if you don't have an accounting, I am providing a link to the contact us page, and that way you can get in contact with our sales team if you already don't have an account team. So feel free to get in contact with us and ask any questions related to NDB. Thank you.
Yeah, in particular, I think all of these are very important, but the test drive is really useful, especially if you're not used to NDB, because beyond just looking at a YouTube video, it allows you to go in and do a live interaction with a live instance running on the cloud. So it gives you the ability to kind of see firsthand how you can spin up databases and protect them with Time Machine for backup recovery and create clones and whatnot. So very good stuff. Thank you.
It is definitely a very cool feature. That's a cool actually tool that we have. We actually have a first question if you want to move to the next slide.
Oh, of course, yeah.
From Jason. Could you also please include the link to the blog regarding NDB on Azure? I will do that. Yeah. Thank you, Jason, for that question.
Terrific. So I guess we'll open up for any other questions from anybody, and don't feel any pressure. But if you now's the opportunity, if you'd like me to try to answer any questions for you, I can do so. Cesar, are there any questions that coming in?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just say that this tech day is a series. This tech talk is a series of tech talks that Nutanix is introducing around NDB. We did our first one late last year around NDB's Time Machine, which is our marquee way of providing point-in-time based recovery using snapshots, so you can recover data very quickly. In fact, some of our customers have demonstrated they can take backups of 40 plus terabyte environments in minutes, and then they can recover in less than 10 minutes or so. So it's a very, very quick process based on snapshot based versus more traditional backup solutions. And we will have more tech talks to come that cover other key areas of the product in significant detail. So I guess with that, Cesar, if there's any other Q&A, I can take it. Or I see Ahmed is on the call. So Ahmed leads and runs our product management team for NDB. So Ahmed, if you want to say anything. Go
Yeah,
for it.
we do have two more questions, if you don't mind me intervening here. Is a recording of the Time Machine talk available?
Yes. So, Kanchan and Cesar, if we can make that available to Keith and the other registrants, definitely. That's the first, as Jeremy mentioned, that was our first tech talk back in November. It was the first part of Time Machine, so we plan on doing a Time Machine part 2. That first part was really introducing Time Machine and talking about the state of the database, so backups and snapshots and how we handle those, along with some of the policies you can set and retention windows. I believe our next tech talk will be Time Machine Part 2, but Cesar can correct me if I'm wrong. So we plan on running this series of tech talks roughly monthly. Obviously, we're waiting for feedback from you all. We want this to be a deeper dive into the technology behind some of the capabilities and feature sets within NDB. Though as we release new releases, we'll also sprinkle in kind of a what's new, just like we did today. So we just released 2.7. So we wanted to just give an overview and give folks a sneak peek into what's coming with that release. And we're targeting 3 releases this calendar year. So there'll be a lot of the ideas to increase the velocity of with which we're able to deliver new capabilities and features to customers. So there'll be several of these upcoming. And then we want to dive deeper into all the different main capabilities of NDB, such as time machine, provisioning, database HA, hybrid cloud, things of that nature. We can really get into the nuts and bolts of how things work.
I just want to add that yes, Time Machine should be, we're targeting February. If anything changes, we'll let you know, but that's a goal right now.
Awesome.
Part 2. Yeah.
So that would be this part 2, but the part
Yeah,
1
part 2, definitely.
we should make that recording available. All these are meant to be recorded assets so that everybody can refer to them later, or for folks who aren't able to join. I know that it's early on the West Coast, so we're trying to do this across all the different time zones. We have customers globally, so but we want to make it available.
We have another question from Gautam. Can we clone a database from NC2 cluster on an AWS to NC2 cluster on Azure?
Yes, there's nothing preventing that from happening as long as you have the right network connectivity.
Okay. We have a question for Jeremy Moreau. Do we have a plan for rep MGR on PostgreSQL?
So I'm not as familiar with that. Can we elaborate a little bit about that, or maybe we can take that offline? I'd be happy to have a follow-up conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you can hop on, Jeremy, if you want to go. I think we can, Cesar and Concha, we can give him access to speak if he'd like to.
Garrett, can we give Jeremy access to speak here?
Yeah, so I think he has access now. You're just on mute, Jeremy.
Yes, sorry. In France, I work for Bouygues Telecom, for example. We have a POC, and what they use for PostgreSQL, I guess it was the same with another company called EDF. It's more like they have 2 clusters most of the time, so they deploy one VM on each clusters with a replication manager, PostgreSQL, and they have a witness outside. And I don't find a lot of customers who have 3 clusters and with the capability to deploy Patroni at least.
I see. So that's what you're referring to. So yeah, so I think so that's something we can have a follow-up conversation with you about. There are roadmap efforts we have around enhancing our HA and DR capabilities around databases. So maybe that's more of a one-on-one conversation around your use case and what we're doing.
Yes, thank you. No problem.
So maybe if we can, Cesar, if you can just make a point, we can schedule a follow-up with Jeremy on that.
Yep.
Yeah, and for anybody that wants to have more of a one-on-one with any of our product team, do let us know. We can certainly have that conversation as well. We like talking to our customers. So
we have a question from Keith Lazarus. This would be excellent. Thank you. We're in the midst of implementing, and while the DBT team understands the presentation, both the last one and future, will be available for educating colleges. Great. Colleagues, sorry.
Yeah,
Great, Keith.
it's
Thanks.
just another plug for making these recordings available, and that's our plan. So the
Yeah.
idea is to have them in a repository and allow you all to access them and use them with your distribute to your teams, etc.
Yeah, and that's part of the plan, Keith. We want to make this available. So thank you so much for that. Guys, any other question that you want to have for both Jeremy or Ahmed? Feel free to ask on the Q&A section.
Or if you feel like speaking, just either type in the chat, or we can take you, give you the opportunity to do that, just like we did with Jeremy. So both are fine. And as mentioned, the idea is to really get close with these tech talks to you all, the practitioners, the people who use NDB hands-on, and on, basically give you a peek behind the cover in terms of how things work, and give you an opportunity to really ask technical questions. Like today was more around the new capabilities and features that were offered by 2.7. But if you attended the first Time Machine one, we have typically the structures. We've got a product manager and one of our engineering leads to go deep into a specific area, and they really are explaining not so much what it is, because that can be explained with other assets we have, but how something works and how you'd use it, and get your questions on, if you ever wondered why something worked the way it did, or how it did something on the back end. So that's a great opportunity for you all to engage with us on a deeper level. And again, this is the second one, so we'd love to get feedback on whether this is the first one you've joined, or if you joined both, giving us feedback on, is this the right level of depth? Are you expecting to see or hear something? We try to do a mix of both PowerPoint and live demo and going through the product, and make it as interactive as possible, so that we can really get to the heart of your questions. So we want to keep improving as this goes along. So please let us know whether this is meeting your needs, and how we can improve moving forward. But we've got a strong lineup all the way through, I think, at least August or September, with several different topics that I touched on.
We definitely do. And also, we're looking forward to get your input in any other topics that you might need, right, in this session. So that's our goal. I don't think we have more questions right now. So we have a little bit of a shy group over than the few ones we had, but feel free to reach out to us. We'll give you a way to contact us or contact the account team directly, and we'll be here to help you. That's our goal. So that's it. I think we're gonna cut it short. We're planning to go all the way to 8 a.m. Pacific, but again, if there are more questions, thank you so much for joining to this Tech Talk. We hope you found the information valuable and insightful. And we want to keep the conversation going, not only here, but through your account teams. And we're definitely going to go back to some of you that have questions, and we're going to try to engage with you directly on the pro team. So we look forward to seeing you at the next Tech Talk in February. And as Ahmed's mentioned, it would be, I think a very interesting session. And I hope you have a great day today, and thank you so much for joining. It's been thank you, Jeremy and Ahmed. Thank you.
Thank you.